All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, if you took a snapshot and showed it to people 100 years from now, of today, you would think that they would be deeply sympathetic to us. What an awful time. Two geriatrics running for president, Trump indictment, Bidenomics in all its glory, awful housing shortages. But it's possible, though, they may not remember any of that. In fact, all of that may be a footnote to what is happening right now, with possibly one of the most important scientific breakthroughs of the 21st century. It has captured the minds of engineers, venture capitalists, and technologists everywhere. I'm talking about the LK99 superconductor. Luckily, my dad is a professor of electrical engineering, and he's able to translate the implications of this technology for my fellow uninitiated through me. Basically, it matters because our current infrastructure that supplies power to devices, our homes, our cars, our data centers, and more, have a central enemy: heat. When electrons flow through the current conductors, they create resistance. This causes two problems. It reduces the flow of the overall electrical current, and it creates heat, which degrades the infrastructure around it. That is conductivity. Thus, a so-called superconductor is a conductor of electricity that functions without this heat. The problem is that achieving superconductivity requires using liquid nitrogen to cool materials down to minus 300 degrees or so Fahrenheit. It can only function at certain artificial pressures, and this poses a lot of problems from an engineering point of view. You got to make space for cooling, you need temperature control, you need atmospheric control, you need materials that can withstand both of these things. It can be done, but it's tricky. That's why engineers make the big bucks. Now, if you think about these principles, it starts to make sense. It's why data centers have to stay cool. This is why your laptop or computer has a fan built inside of it. It's why electronics can get hot whenever they're charging or not. In essence, heat is the enemy of two things. It is inefficient, and it's hard to build around whenever you're making real products. Thus, the holy grail has always been, what if we don't have to worry about all this pesky heat and pressure? And this is where the hype of recent days is coming from. A team of scientists in South Korea have published the preprint of a paper in which they claim to have developed a superconductor which functions at temperatures above 260 degrees Fahrenheit and with ambient pressure. So basically, doesn't need to be cold anymore. You don't need some crazy atmospheric pressures. The thing just works in normal temperature, normal climate. The team claims to have replicated a genuine superconductor status in a video that they published showing a magnetic effect that is supposed to be the hallmark of superconductivity. So why are we not popping champagne and celebrating? Well, some people are still very skeptical of all of this and are reiterating a scientific principle. Sounds great. Can you replicate it? As Scientific American notes, in 1987 there was actually similar hype around a compound that was discovered that could function as a superconductor, but after closer inspection it ended up fizzling out. Apparently these claims do pop up every once in a while in academia and then they fizzle out. It's just that this time Twitter exists and people are getting seriously hyped. So at the same time, we still shouldn't pour water on the entire thing. Some Chinese researchers at Huazhong University, they've claimed to replicate the superconductor manufacturing process and posted as proof the magnetic effect that I referenced by cooking up the same materials as published by the South Korean team. The Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory at the University of California system also claimed that it had simulated the South Korean team's findings and believed that it was theoretically possible, and they were joined in that by the Shenyang National Lab in China. So we're in the wait and see mode. It's kind of like the lottery, though. The best part, it's not the drawing itself. It's that part, the 3 hours or so before the drawing, when you get to sit back and you imagine what life could be like with a small chance that actually it will be that way. If this works, what does it mean? It means smaller electronics. It means abundantly cheap energy because so much will no longer be lost in transmission. It means a revolution in cars, frictionless technology, and it means massive advancements in quantum computing. But I think more importantly, it means that we are no longer living in a stagnant technological era. One of the most important quotes about technology was said by venture capitalist Peter Thiel almost a decade ago. We were promised flying cars. All we got was 140 characters. There's something profoundly true about this, and our last scientific advancement in the last 2 decades. Watch a movie from the 1990s. Other than the cell phone, what's really all that different from their life and yours? The only advancement that we've made is consumer electronics. And while we think that and the internet are incredible in their own right, put it up against previous eras of scientific discovery, they pale in comparison. For those who have watched the movie Oppenheimer, one of the most exciting parts of the film is the first hour and a half or so, as they show Oppenheimer traversing through the universities of Europe, meeting some of the most important scientific minds in the world, and collaborating. In those days, it seemed as if world-changing Nobel Prize-winning discoveries were being made on a near daily basis and then accelerated by things like the Manhattan Project. And the crazy thing is it really didn't even stop there. We went from President Kennedy's wish to a man on the moon within a decade, and then along the way accelerated the development of technologies, computers, microprocessors. These never would have taken off without the funding that these programs provided and the scientific inquiry. But then it all came crashing down sometime around 1971. As Thiel himself has said, we stopped going to space, we became a financialized and consumer-obsessed economy. Life got easier, Americans got fatter and richer on paper, but our pace of advancement basically kind of stopped. Even now, consider two countries that were at the forefront of this, South Korea and China. While we're apparently only in the replication game, not the advancement game. If there's any hope to LK99, it's that it could give us, the world, another shot at greatness, and we can actually ditch the 140 characters or whatever the hell the limit is now on X for real flying cars. So I want flying cars, Crystal. That's what I've always wanted. Listen, I know we should be skeptical. My dad said that. He's like, listen. Yeah.
Hey guys, obviously I had a lot of thoughts on what Saagar had to say there. So if you want to see my thoughts on this monologue and every other Saagar monologue, make sure you subscribe at breakingpoints.com.